Young Pericles, the son of Xanthippus, who had now come to manhood, his father had died shortly after the great successes at Mycale and Sestos. Pericles is now head of his household, head of one of the owner of one of the great fortunes in the city of Athens, and he takes money from the family coffers, even though he's only in his early 20s, and he works with this great poetic genius, Aeschylus, on a play that was a little like Phrynica's Phoenician Women, but far grander. That play has survived, copies of it have survived. It's the oldest drama we know of, still surviving in the world. It was presented in the year 472 BC, sponsored by Pericles, written and produced and probably acted by Aeschylus. And it had that same idea of taking you to the Persian court, but it's called the Persians because the chorus are the gorgeously clad elders of Persia, the princes and aristocrats who stayed home in Susa. The chief characters are the queen mother, Atossa, the widow of King Darius and the mother of King Xerxes, who has all of a mother's anxiety and forebodings about her son. Aeschylus started his play with the elders gathering at the court for yet another day of waiting for news of Xerxes and his expedition. They have every reason to be confident. They keep reciting those lists of the big battalions that were sent against Greece and saying, how could they not succeed? But they have forebodings, and when the queen comes in, she and the elders feed off each other's sense of dread, and she recounts to them a terrifying dream she had, where Xerxes is a charioteer, and his two horses are Asia and Greece. And Asia moves smoothly and proudly through its paces, whereas Greece is a rebellious horse, kicking and ultimately throwing the young charioteer out of the chariot and injuring him there on the ground. She's terrified by this. She asks for the elders to interpret her dream for her, but they instead bid her to call up the ghost of her dead husband, Darius, the earlier king, and ask him. So Darius is conjured up out of the stage. This is the second actor. And he hears all of what's going on. He's appalled at what Xerxes has done. They tell him about the bridge of boats across the Hellespont. He thinks, what madness was this? So they are left with even more terror than they felt before. And sure enough, hard on the heels of the apparition of King Darius comes the messenger from having run or ridden, that last messenger in the line who's come along the royal road with the reports of the Battle of Salamis. I shouldn't say the last messenger in the line. This is an exceptional case in Aeschylus' mind. This is a man who saw Salamis, saw the defeat of the Persians in the Straits, and has come now himself to give the word to Queen Atossa and the elders at home. This is the longest speech in the play. It's one of the longest speeches in any Greek play because it's the entire Battle of Salamis envisioned from the Persian side and seen through Persian eyes. I've had the good luck to see the Persians performed at Loyola Marymount by students in California. I've seen it performed in New York City by the National Theatre Company of Greece. It's often described by scholars as a jingoistic play, a sort of rattling the standard and cheering on part of the Athenians and rubbing it in the noses of the Persians that they lost. I went to see it in California with Larry Tritle, who's a great classicist and a Vietnam veteran, and he said to me, nobody who's ever been in combat thinks The Persians is a play that is glorying over the enemy. Instead, you are seeing the tragedy that befalls anybody who falls into the world of war. And there are great moments in the Persians where one feels that great sympathy that Aristotle said tragedy should evoke, the sense of catharsis and identification. And you feel it for the Persians, and I certainly felt it in both of the productions that I saw once I was there and experiencing it not as a scholarly text on a page, but as a theatrical drama on stage. One of the great moments, of course, in the messenger speech is the charge of the Greeks. The messenger has described the demon that came out of the night and gave Xerxes the false information that lured him into the straits. He then goes on to the movement of Xerxes' fleet into the straits by night, and then with the breaking of day, the horses of dawn leap into the sky, and they hear the trumpet, they hear the singing of the Greeks, the war cry. They realize that they have been fooled. And then they hear the battle cry of the Greeks. And it's an extraordinary moment, and the lines of the battle cry are, "Go, sons of Greece, free your fatherland, free your children, wives, tombs of your forefathers, shrines of your ancestral gods. Fight now for all. Some of the most patriotic lines and images ever conceived, and probably, since Aeschylus was there, carrying for us, 2,500 years later, the authentic battle cry that sounded over the waters at Salamis. Earlier on, Aeschylus took the chance of having an exchange between the queen and the elders, which tried to show how the Persians might look at Athens. And I'd like to end with this. They are there on the stage, and the queen is questioning the elders about what they know about this distant city, this tiny place which has dared to challenge the great Persian Empire. Tell me, where does Athens lie? Far westward, where the sun god sinks his fainting fires. Atossa, the queen, why should my son yearn to make this town his prey? Athens once conquered, he is master of all Greece. Atossa, have they such a rich supply of fighting men? They have. Soldiers who once struck Persian arms a fearful blow. A reference to Marathon. Atossa, besides their men, have they good store of wealth at home? Chorus, they have a spring of silver in the earth. And that's a reference to the discovery of the silver that built the ships that fought at Salamis. Are they skilled in archery? No, not at all. They carry stout shields. They fight hand to hand with spears. Who shepherds them? What master do their ranks obey? Master, they are not called servants to any man. And if that line did not get a cheer in the theater of Dionysus in Athens when it was premiered in 472 BC, I would truly be amazed. There you have in dramatic form the Greeks' own view of what set them apart from the Persians. It was their love of freedom, it was their love of liberty and independence that made them supermen in that hour, that enabled them to defy the forces of history, turn what seemed like an inevitable defeat into the most shining and glorious victory that the Greeks would ever know.